Anyway, moving on, Carnegie Mellon University is a private research university headquartered in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, founded in 1900 by Andrew Carnegie. The University of Engineering established its African campus in Rwanda in 2011. President Paul Kagame inaugurated the new permanent campus built by the government of Rwanda in collaboration with the African Development Bank. Our Rwanda-based correspondent Adrian Koi has more.
With a goal to tackle the shortage in quality engineering skills in Africa, which is believed to be vital in the transformation of Africa, Carnegie Mellon University, in collaboration with the government of Rwanda, initiated and established the university right here in Rwanda in 2011. CMU Africa is a world-class engineering-focused school that believes not only in graduating engineers, but leaders of innovation. The inauguration of this new facility was attended by high-profile influencers, including the president of Rwanda, whose government, in collaboration with the African Development Bank, built the facility. Professor Vijaya Kumar highlighted as he voiced the vision of the university.
Our vision at CMU Africa is to educate and empower Africa's next generation of technology leaders, innovators, and entrepreneurs by delivering an educational experience that meets the highest world standards for engineering education for the benefit of Africa's socio-economic transformation. We are delighted to move in this beautiful new building built by the government of Rwanda with financing from African Development Bank.
The president of CMU then mentioned that over 90% of their graduates stay in Africa to advance it.
Since we began this program in 2012, annual enrollment has more than tripled. Because of CMU's partnership here, almost 200 African students have graduated with CMU master's degrees in engineering. Their success is not just limited to their individual careers. As Kumar mentioned, close to 90% of our graduates stay in Africa, advancing technological innovations and growing new businesses right here in their communities.
Giving his speech, President Paul Kagame then said that it's advantageous that world-class education can be accessed within the continent.
The presence of CMU Africa in Rwanda has obvious advantages that I hope all the students will take full advantage of. First, this world-class education is offered right here on the continent to young Africans who are able. The milestone we are celebrating today is a significant step in ensuring that we are part of and benefit from the global digital revolution.
Stephen Mokora is a Kenyan student at the university. He confirmed that the government of Rwanda pays up to 50% for every East African student at the university and 100% for every Rwandan student.
The university has quite a number of openings when it comes to scholarships and all that. So we have the government of Rwanda, which gives Rwandans 100% with a stipend. And also East Africans actually get 50%.
A few students cared to share their experience in the school.
It is more than what I thought, actually. That it's extra challenging. I expected it to be challenging, but not this challenging. It's taken me through phases. I have spent nights at school, left school late, but the good thing about the school is the community spirit. Everybody, we know we are building Africa for Africans, and so everyone is working together, helping each other to build the community, and I've enjoyed it so far.
Yeah, things are challenging. But you know, the good thing about challenging things, you get up the next day, you do something that is challenging, and you come out a better person. And the school, I mean, the faculty, the staff, everyone is just like supporting you.
All African students at CMU Africa receive a combined financial aid package from the government of Rwanda and the university itself to make sure that the challenge of finances are eliminated. Reporting for KTN News in Kigali, Rwanda, my name is Adrian Koi.
Thank you, Adrian Koi, for that. Now, that story takes us to a short break here on Bottomline Africa. When we come back, we'll be having that discussion that I had earlier indicated. 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. They have begun today, day one. We will be having Jean-Paul Murunga, who is a lawyer and Harmful Practices Program Officer at Equality Now. He'll be helping us steer that discussion. But first, that break, I leave you with Destination Africa.
This is KTN News.
Buckle up for the wild ride. Party after party after party. Yes, Vibes Radio presents the Chris Martin Big Deal Concert at KICC Grounds on Saturday, 7th December. Come for some weekend love all night long.
Kenya, Nairobi, it's a big deal. This one is very, very, very important. I want to see you all for real.
Join Kenya's biggest music stars, DJs, and Vibes Radio crew in hosting Chris Martin all the way from Jamaica. Delicious food, ample parking, and security guaranteed. Tickets available on mtickets.com. It's all about good vibes. No one can stop reggae.
Tonight, on the Great Kenyan Bake Off, it's gluten-free week. Get your mind blown as the beloved ugali is transformed and things get a bit cheesy in the tent.
The judges have been the meanest today. It's so difficult. First time for everything. This is really intimidating. Why?
I'm just feeling so nice and Kenyan right now.
The flavor is beautiful. Watch all the drama tonight on the Great Kenyan Bake Off. Brought to you by Unga Limited, inspiring a nation to bake.
This time round, the show comes to you from Amsterdam in the Netherlands.
There's a lot of trade and passenger travel between the Netherlands and Kenya.
We see a lot of people flying, for example, taking either a KLM flight out, returning on a KQ flight. For many years we've done that, and that partnership really created benefits for many of our customers.
And what's new is KLM celebrates 50 years in Kenya.
It's nice to have a modern airplane for us to fly to Nairobi, of course.
But this 787 is really our princess of the skies. It's new, it's modern, it's fresh.
Kenya-Netherlands ties this Thursday at 8:30 p.m. on KTN News.
In Africa, business is about much more than stock markets and spreadsheets. We're a continent of entrepreneurs, of traders, of deal makers. And we need business news that speaks to us. Money Daily from the BBC goes beyond the headlines, providing the tips and tricks you need to stay ahead of the pack. From tech trends to advice on getting a pay rise, this is daily business news with a twist. BBC Money Daily, because business doesn't have to be boring.
When it comes to Adventure Diaries, we break from the usual norm of bringing you hard news, but also delve much on such like fun activities. Join me, Tobias Chanji, every Tuesdays at 3 p.m. and 9 p.m. as we engage each other in full adventure.
This is KTN News.
Welcome back. Thank you for staying with Bottomline Africa. Now, today is the 25th day of November, of course, of 2019, and is day one of the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. We want to have that conversation, but we're asking you, do you think the laws against gender-based violence are punitive enough? Do you think the laws against gender-based violence are punitive enough? Tweet me directly at Ashley Mazuri or at KTN News KE. The hashtag to use is Bottomline Africa. Now, we want to have that conversation here in studio, and joining me is John Paul Murunga, who is a lawyer and Harmful Practice Program Officer at Equality Now. Thank you very much for joining us. I'll just start with the 16 days of activism, specifically for 2019. What is the focus this year?
The focus this year is we are looking at what we are calling generation equality, where we are looking at how the two genders balance in terms of equality to rights, equality to responsibilities, and outcomes of different programs by the government. But more specifically on violence against women, we are looking at rape issue, that we've seen a lot of media highlights on women or girls being raped and on top of it being killed or maimed. So we are just looking at how can this be addressed within the legal system, but also in terms of creating awareness amongst everyone to understand their rights, so that whenever you notice any sign, then you run for help.
Since you are, of course, lawyer, let's start with how can this be addressed in the legal system?
In the legal system is that we have different crimes that are committed. For example, if someone either rapes you or sexual harassment or issues to do with defilement for young girls. So then the moment an act has happened, then your immediate reporting place is the police station. That is if you are able to. But of course, there could be cases where somebody witnessed it and you have somebody who was around. Then they have the responsibility as well to make sure that this is reported to the police and then the necessary procedures start. The unfortunate thing we have is that very many Kenyans are not aware of the law. Not only Kenyans, but world over, very many people, the civilians, are not aware of the legal process. So when an act happens or a crime is committed, then they don't report. And then even if they report, they fail to follow up. So that's why you realize that cases are reported, there are highlights, but then how many people are jailed, how many at the end of the day go to jail? There are very few, because very many victims do not pursue the legal process because of the inherent difficulties which are perceived as becoming a barrier towards accessing justice. But the process that starts at the police station, you report it, and the moment you report it, then the government is supposed to take it up, because this is a crime not only against you, but against the state. To say, yes.
But then we've had cases of people reporting and being chased away. We've had those cases. Then what happens then? As a victim, do you go to another police station?
That is one option, but what we are doing also as an organization is that we are building the capacity of prosecutors and police officers, because remember, some of these police officers, when they were being recruited, they never went through what we call a victim-oriented approach in doing the policing, so that they don't understand some of these crimes. For example, you ask them that, what does defilement mean? When a girl of 14 years old is sexually molested by someone, how do you go about it? What crime is that? Some of them don't understand this. So that's why we came up with a program where we are teaching them, we are taking them through the laws and even the subsequent amendments, because these laws, some of them were passed long time, and then amendments have happened, enhancing the sentences, providing different procedures, for example, the DNA procedures, the corroboration of evidence, where even if you don't have the evidence of the DNA or the semen, somebody somebody can still be jailed if there's enough corroborating factors that either someone saw him or her doing the act, or the child is able to explain herself well, that the surrounding circumstances points to the accused person as guilty. So then all these changes which have happened into the law, some of the police officers are not aware of them. We've heard of cases where police officers tell, for example, people who report the cases that go get raped again so that we have the evidence. I mean, these are violations and violations, but because these people do not understand the law themselves. So that's why it is important even for the government. A lot of stakeholders, the NGOs are doing this, but if it is taken up by the government, that they teach their police officers, their prosecutors on what these offenses are and how to go about them in the simplest way possible, then we'll have a reduction of the cases. But as we stand at the moment, a number of police officers do not even understand the Sexual Offences Act itself.
All right. The campaign has been going on for 28 years, right, if I'm not wrong, the 16 Days of Activism. Do you think it's doing something to help the situation when it comes to GBV?
The campaign is doing a lot and a lot. And one thing that the campaign has managed to do is to break the silence. 20 or 25 years ago, when the Beijing Declaration was done, very few cases were being reported to the media, and even the issue of rape, defilement, or GBV, domestic violence, being highlighted as a case scenario in the media was very rare because they were seen as private issues, domestic issues. Why are you bringing a private violation in a public arena? But we are happy that at the moment these issues make headlines on the televisions, on the radios. So that's one thing that the campaign has managed actually to bring to the forefront. But now where we need to take it further now is after reporting what happens, and what goes back to your question which you had asked, that people report and then they're driven away. Do they go elsewhere? Yes, they can go elsewhere, but we need to strengthen our mechanism so that the moment it is reported, then it is picked up by the prosecution, by the police, and that's where we have a problem, that you will find a case hit the headlines, but after 2-3 weeks, you find that the perpetrator was released on bail or bond. Then most people do not understand the legal process, that this person had rights to be released on bail or bond, but then when that perpetrator goes back to the community, it is an act of impunity that this person says, I'm walking free, I did this. So then this encourages acts of violence amongst other people. So these are the things which now, as a government, as a state, we need to reflect on them and see how can they be handled so that the legal system is able to pick up all those cases which are reported, even if it is reported on TV and the victim doesn't come forward. That is an obligation of the state to pick it up, because you have cases where, for example, a journalist will go undercover and cover a story, or even sexual violence, even in a company. But then the victims are afraid, like the case we had recently of Kajiado, a woman who was being assaulted in the supermarket. And then we are told that they agreed, negotiated. I mean, that's a crime that a state should be concerned that this has happened. It is not only against this woman, but it is against our laws, our legal system. And then when the law takes its course, then people surrounding that area will understand that even if you're able to pay the victim and make them feel like they don't want to pursue the case, the state can still pursue you.
So then it means that there's a gap in our law.
Exactly.
What laws need to be put in place to ensure that this doesn't happen?
What needs to be put in place is that all the police officers, the prosecutors, they need to be well trained on these emerging issues, these emerging challenges in prosecution, in investigations. For example, if you look at even the issue of DNA, we have, if it is not only in Nairobi, then you can't do DNA elsewhere. So you realize that there will be so many cases pending out there because the DNA evidence cannot be adduced. At the same time, you realize that a number of our police officers are focused more on what we call the mainstream violence, robbery, theft, but then these violence which involve the dignity of the person, the way it is handled, the way the police officer will interview you so that you will be willing to come every day to pursue this case. That's what matters. That if these police officers can be trained in gender-sensitive ways in which they can talk to you, that you feel comfortable even opening up to them and telling them how this started, then that can help us. That's where we are missing the gap, that people are willing to report, but then after reporting, the process they go through discourages them, and this now makes them close up. And that's why now, when we look at the campaign wants to break silence, but our system is reinforcing the silence.
All right. I know we're working towards breaking silence, but then culture is also one of the main causes of this silence. We have women out there who are suffering, but then because in the African culture, a woman is supposed to persevere, then they do not go forward and say, I have been violated in this, and that. If that woman is watching you right now, what would you tell them?
What I can tell her is that there is nothing like African culture of silence. This is a socialization that has been driven by the way we've been living as a people, that there are those things we've been treating as private. But up to when Is it when somebody dies is when now you bring it to the public? Is it when a girl of 2 years old is raped? Is when you bring it to the public? Is it when somebody loses their arm or their leg? So then a time comes when, as a people, we just need to wake up the way we are being told that, kumekucha, let's wake up as women. Let's wake up not only in the domestic space, but even in the public space. We've seen women taking up leadership. The same way, women in the families, let them take leadership and just stand up and say, no, this is wrong. You can't beat me every day. You can't do this and that. There is the mechanism. The government pays police officers, pays prosecutors. It has even a gender department that is supposed to safeguard all these issues. So why will taxpayers' money be wasted in a process which women are not benefiting from? So that woman needs to understand that the money, whenever she buys anything, the VAT goes partly to support what is supposed to safeguard her. These mechanisms exist. There's a hotline which every woman needs to know, so that whenever anything happens, they call it. There's one for children, 116, and then there is one for adults, so I'll give it to you later on. But there are so many services out there which are available for people who are suffering silently. You don't need to make it public if you feel that will threaten your personal security, but you can find help, even from your phone. If you just Google right now, you'll find a hotline, call it, they'll treat your issue confidentially, and you'll find a way of exiting that toxic relationship. Because the other issue is dependency, that if I leave, who will take care for me? We have a law that provides that the person who violated you will actually pay for your rent the moment you leave that house.
Okay.
Yet not so many Kenyans know about this.
True. But I know today is basically on women and children. But then let's not forget about the men in our society. We have some men that are suffering in silence. Because I know with them, it's very hard for them to come forward. Is there a way that they can have psychological meditation for them, psychological help for them, even though they're not really able to come forward, but they can be helped in some way, not?
Yes, there's help for everyone, for men, for women, for children. There's a group called Men Engage, and all these services are available out there. What we need to shed off as a society is that what we call the toxic masculinity, that have been taught that as a man, I am all in all. I am some sort of a god that nothing can happen to me. I can't speak when I'm hurt. Yet we know the society world over that now, when you speak, the problem is partly solved when you share it. And these are things which we learn even at our tender ages. But unfortunately, we live in a society that is patriarchal, that believes that the man is everything, that if the man is not there, then there is no household. But this is something that we are happy that we are shedding it off a bit by bit, that we come to understand that you can still be a man, but you can be a man who appreciates human rights and embraces human rights, including your own rights, that when you know that your right has been infringed, then there's somebody who is supposed to take care of that.
All right, I'd like to end it there. Problem shared is a problem half solved. And I hope our viewers are listening to that. Thank you very much, John Paul Murunga, who is a lawyer and harmful practices program officer at Equality Now. Thank you. All right, moving on.